across divides, and we're going to focus on teaching how to disagree better, learning the skills of listening and speaking. It's free. It's August 25th right here. I think it's the same room, 6 to 7:45 p.m. We have pizza as well at 5:30. You're all welcome. I think there were supposed to be some flyers floating around, but if not, I have a few, and I'll just pass them around if that's okay.
And I'll put some more here.
Oh, wonderful. And you can take a picture of it or take a copy, and then there should be some more over there. I'll be moderating the workshop. I'm a trained moderator for Braver Angels, and I think it's a great opportunity. You can also use the skills to talk to your relatives at Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much.
So those flyers are here on this table. Also, if anybody else wants a physical copy of tonight's agenda or the flyer for this event, or to sign in for this meeting, you can do that all at this table over here.
Okay.
Sorry, those were not.
Maybe we should pass the sign-in sheet around.
Yeah,
so
let's do that.
People didn't have the time to do that. Great, thank you. Okay, thank you, Beth. Are there any other public comments for the evening before we get to our agenda? Okay, not seeing any others. So I will go ahead and close the public comment, and we will move on to the main bulk of our meeting tonight. So the topic of our meeting is a discussion of initiatives to address affordability in Hartford. We're going to start by doing just some introductions. And since we're a small-ish group, we can go around and everyone give a chance to hear who's in the room, introduce ourselves. I'll just ask folks to say their name. If you're part of a committee or commission in Hartford currently, you can share that. If not, you can briefly share any other affiliation or what brought you into the room tonight. So to begin, my name's Ida Griesemer. I'm a member of the Hartford Selectboard. I'm currently serving as the chair of the Selectboard. I'm in the third year of a 3-year term, and it's been a pleasure to serve this town and be part of this board and collaborate on topics that have the potential to really have an impact on residents, and really looking forward to hearing more thoughts from everyone in the room about how we might do that on this topic specifically. I'll go ahead and pass to my left here.
Hi, I'm Sarah Ferguson. Sarah Ferguson of Wilder, and I renovate houses. I don't flip them. I don't like that word. It sounds violent. I renovate old houses, and I'm here because I'm interested in this topic from a very deep level. That's what I'm about. Go ahead.
My name's Jesse Pollard. I've been volunteering with the Energy Commission since December 2021 and also participated in several Planning Commission subcommittees, also a member of the Climate Action Steering Team. What brings me here today is the Energy Commission, and excited to kind of cross-coordinate. I think that a lot of conversations happen in silo, and this is a good public outlet to get some things out. So with that.
Jennifer Kravitz, and I am on the Housing and Homelessness Committee, and I think it's amazingly good that we're coordinating together.
I'm Nancy Trotter. I'm also on the Housing Committee and live in Wilder and work at the Havens, so see firsthand how desperate we are for affordable, safe housing in this area. So here we are.
My name is John Clerkin. I go back a long way with the town of Hartford, 50 years. I'm here tonight. Well, first of all, I'd like to say that I've been in this for a long time, and I'm more excited and more appreciative of the changes that are going to be coming, and I believe that the town of Hartford is on the edge of turning the corner. And we have all the things we need. We have the people, we have the resources, we've got the leadership, we've got the staff that's absolutely amazing. And I'm here tonight not to criticize or offer solutions. I'm here tonight to learn what you all have to say, and hopefully I would get a chance maybe to present my perspective on the real estate affordability over the last 50 years. Not a history lesson, but to identify the things that are within our control, and also so that we have the strength to go ahead and make the changes that are necessary, but also to identify and have the wisdom to know the things we don't have control of. And maybe we don't go down some, we don't call it real estate, it's not a dead-end street, it's a no-through street. So we don't need to be going down any no-through street. So whenever there's a chance, if I'm allowed to speak or whatever, if you have questions, you can just interrupt me or whatever. But I'm here to learn from all of you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Tim Carriel. I serve on the board at the moment, and I've been through, I've been in the community for quite some time. Prior to that, I was in Heartland, and I've always been very excited about this format of trying to get together as a community and bang stuff out, come up with new ideas. It's hard to format a meeting like this because there is a lot of different perspectives, and trying to coalesce that into meaningful solutions is hard work. But I've always been advocating before I was on the board, as you guys know, to I would bang on the podium and say, let's get together, let's talk, let's figure this stuff out. So I'm just here to kind of listen tonight, hopefully not and talk less, which is possible for me actually. But I truly I'm very excited about the fact that we're trying to wrestle this of several other significant community problems in a format where we can listen to each other, we can learn, and hopefully begin to move that ball, right? Because that's kind of what we all want to do here. So thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you. Mike, do you want to introduce yourself?
I can, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
you're a community
Mike
member.
Kent from Junction Arts and Media, recording this meeting, as we do every select board meeting. I'm also a resident of Hartford, and I'm going to be listening too. So.
Thank you. John?
Yes, I'm John Reed, and I'm on the Planning Commission and the Climate Action Steering Team. And I'm constantly aware of the need to make this a more affordable community, and I'm anxious to hear what everyone has to say to further that goal.
Thank you.
I'm Bruce Riddle, I'm on the Planning Commission.
Thank you.
I'm Maggie Burnett, and I'm on the committee for housing and homelessness.
I'm Jake Ross. I live and work in Hartford. I'm out tonight to kind of just listen and see what we're all doing to affect change in our communities, because both in my daily life and my work, I see the struggles on multiple levels. And I think it's really positive that we're all coming into this with open minds and being able to hear each other and receive that and be constructive in our ideas moving forward.
Great. Thank you. We'll keep going on the outside here, and then we'll come and get the folks on the inside.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Kyle Katz. I'm a resident of Hartford, and I'm on the Resilient Hartford Committee. And I'm looking forward to hearing all of your ideas on affordability and being able to share them out.
Thank you.
Tad Montgomery, Wilder. I sit on Resilient Hartford and have been an interloper on the Energy Commission for a bunch of years, and also the Conservation Commission and the Climate Action Steering Team and the Housing Commission. I spent 7 years as the City of Lebanon's Energy and Facilities Manager, so long-term building infrastructure cost reductions is near and dear close to my heart. and decarbonization also. I'm also starting an acupuncture auricular therapy center in White River to help people suffer from vision.
I'm Lexi Webster. I'm the Housing and Development Specialist. And I think a lot about affordability, but I'll save my thoughts for later.
I'm Lori Hirschfield. I'm the Director of the Department of Planning and Development. And I'm here to really listen and hear what people have to say. It's part of what we do.
For how much longer?
I will be retiring at the end of this summer after 30 years of being here.
My name is Kim Souza. I am currently serving on the Town and School Meeting Committee and chaired as also a small business owner in Hartford Village, and also am chair currently of the Downtown Business Association, which has been recently revived. I have a million ideas, but I'll also be interested to hear what people have to say.
Thank you. Okay, let's go back to the side. Yes.
Hi, I'm Gwen Susan. I don't live in a village. My role as the chairperson of 250 is wrapping up, so I'm trying to figure out what committee or commission to join next. So I heard about this, and I thought it was a fantastic idea that people were getting together on such a big issue. So I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Great. Thanks for coming.
I'm Robert Dean. I live in White River Junction. I run I'm the founder and editor-in-chief, whatever you want to call it, for Community News Radio. We cover municipal news for the Upper Valley, and currently we're on one radio station and trying to get on others. Currently we're a non-profit organization, not because it was set up that way, but I say that because we don't make any money. But we're hoping to, and if you're a business owner, I'm sure you can relate. This was very near and dear to me because I did report on this meeting, and this is a topic we all live and feel, and so it's very important to me. And I did put together a 13-point proposal, and due to time constraints, I probably won't be able to get through all of it. But I just want to let you know that it will be posted on our Facebook page at Community News Radio, and I'm glad to meet you all and see so many people that want to get involved. It's a really good thing.
That's great. Thank you.
I'm Beth Mallow. In addition to the workshop that I mentioned earlier, I've served on the Climate Action Steering Team, and I'm now on a task force with Lexi on building community in Quechee Village. I mostly came because I wanted to hear what people had to say about this topic, and there's so much energy in this room, and partly because I'm sure that affordability will come up in 2 weeks at the workshop that I'm moderating, and I want to understand, what the issues are, so I can be the best moderator and facilitator I can.
Good evening. I'm Jonathan Rugg. I'm a Vermont civil and structural engineer here I live in Hartford Village since 1999. I have some strong feelings about affordability because I'm in the construction industry and have been since 1987, maybe a little earlier if you include high school. But I am concerned about the economic realities of the cost of construction, and I worry that nibbling around the edges with policy is not going to get us where we need to be. And I think I worry that people delude themselves when they run for town office and say, I'm going to fix the housing crisis, because policy is not going to fix the housing crisis. So if people have good ideas on how to fix this, I'd like to hear it.
Same. Thank you.
My name is Eric Krause. I'm the Vice Chair of the Hartford Selectboard. Thank you all for being here tonight. A small housekeeping item. The number in the upper left corner of that tri board gets you into the bathroom if you need to go to the restroom. There's a lot of people in the room, and I think this is fantastic. If you leave here tonight feeling that you did not get a chance to fully express your ideas, share your thoughts, you know where to reach the Hartford Selectboard. And this board listens to the community. It's action-oriented, and we do follow through. And I can say the same of the current administration. We're interested in understanding the community. We're not necessarily going to have all the immediate answers, but we've got to start by having a conversation. So thank you for being here tonight.
I'm Mike Eigenbrod. I'm on the select board, fairly new member. I guess I'm not really new anymore. Yeah, I think this is awesome. I love a good brainstorm session. Really, I'm just here to kind of listen and give input when I feel it's appropriate. So it's awesome to see so many people here.
Hi, I'm Ashley Andrews. I'm also on the Hartford Select Board. I'm just really excited you're all here tonight. I'm excited that our committees have been so willing to work with the board on coming up with some tangible things that we can hopefully do to relieve some financial burden from our residents. Of course, the board has our own work on budget season coming up, and it was thoughtful that we wanted to have these conversations before we get into that process. So thank you all for being here. And oh yeah.
Hi, John. I'm chair of the Housing Committee. Live in White River Junction. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Okay, awesome. Thank you everyone so much for introducing yourselves. And now we have a little bit of a sense of the community that we've gathered here tonight, and it's really good to hear from you all and have your presence and your voices. At this point, I'm going to pass it to Ashley to give a brief overview of the process that we're planning for tonight. And then from there, we'll hand it to Eric to talk a little bit about some results of a small survey that we did ahead of this meeting to gather some input from folks that maybe couldn't be in the room tonight, or maybe who can, just in a survey format. And then we'll go back to Ashley to kind of walk through the brainstorming process that we've laid out in the agenda. That sound good? Okay, so yeah, and I'll ask that if you do want to speak at any time, we're going to hope to keep it relatively informal and that people can jump in, but please do raise your hand. Like I said, it's being streamed and recorded, so we want to make sure we're not talking at the same time. So I'll do our best to make sure that we're getting to people as I see their hands. And again, introduce yourself prior to every time you speak, please. Okay, so Ashley.
Awesome. So we're gonna do the brainstorming in 3 rounds. And so in round 1, we'll have the committee chairs or whatever spokesperson you prefer from each committee kind of share with the group the initial proposals that they have in mind. So just background for folks, the committees have been talking about this for a couple of months now, and so they already have some kind of leads they're following. So round 1 will be we can give like plus minus 10 minutes to each committee. Take of that what you feel you need, and yeah, just let us know where you're at, and I'll write those ideas up on the whiteboard or the post-it note. And then in round 2, that's where we'll really be able to kind of have more open sharing. So round 2 is going to be feedback and refinement. So if there's a proposal that you heard that you really love, please chime in. We'll get a sense of like, kind of like how loud the yeas and nays are for the different proposals. And then if there are proposals that aren't, or just kind of maybe even like buckets or concepts that aren't up there, that would be the time to share them out. This can also be the time that we can kind of touch on cross-committee collaborations and identify, or maybe like consent, like, yeah, Energy Committee would like to work with housing on this. And then we'll move that, so that will be about 30 minutes, which I know is a tall order. It's, we'll want to stay there, but I'm gonna keep us moving on time out of that 30 minutes. And then in round 3, we'll do some shortlisting and planning. So that's when we'll utilize the whiteboard. This matrix is kind of dividing it into what is actionable in the top half of the chart, and then what are the quick wins on the left-hand side, and what are the maybe longer term, like this is something we want to take action on, but it's not gonna happen maybe this calendar year. And then on the bottom half, maybe the things that are important but are not actionable, whether they be short or long term. And we'll try to tie a point person to each one of those initiatives that we land with and a check-in date so that we try to keep, like Eric said, we like to follow through. I know our committees like to follow through, and so we'll just designate who's kind of taking the lead on those so they don't get dropped. And does anyone have any questions about that process?
I just ask, see on the agenda here it says affordability. What's the definition of affordability? What affordability are we looking at here?
Yeah, that's a great question. Do you want me to? Yeah, so we were looking at this initially in the context of how we could tap our committees to maybe be forward thinking about the affordability crisis and especially, I don't know if Eric, you want to speak to this. We're expecting more and more increases in fuel prices and cost of living due to the conflict in the Middle East right now. And so how could we kind of as a town get ahead of that a little bit? So when we talked about it, I don't think it's meant to solve any singular problem. It's not meant to solve housing affordability in one calendar year, but ideas that have been floated are like fuel assistance, property tax relief, like just what are the ideas that could help residents in the next year? Does that make sense? And if I didn't do that answer justice, anyone from the board, please feel free to chime in.
I mean, I'll chime in a little bit. Many years ago, and I think they still have it, they used to have this sort of like real estate housing gathering at Fireside Inn. And there was discussion after discussion around the fact that, the guideline was 30% of your income should be devoted to housing. And we find that for a significant number of people in Apple Valley, it's 50% of their income, right? So that's like one of the stress vessels or a metric or whatever. And, the thing that's really striking to me is, and I know you, Mr. Rugg, you mentioned like nibbling around the edges, but we got to nibble somewhere, right? So like the idea is that we're not going to cure this and drive it from 50% back to 30% in a year or whatever, but we have to come up with some strategies to try and get housing affordability to be palatable for people where it's even in reach. And that's kind of my thinking around that. Like, and arguably you want to work on the income and the expense side, right? So you've got to kind of work on both. And I have no clue how to do that, but I'm just saying this has been a discussion that's gone on in the Upper Valley for 10, 15 years of like the continual increasing housing costs. And nicer rent apartments in White River for $650 a month. That same apartment is $1,500. So we have a problem, right? We have a high cost, incomes have not followed it. How do we cure that kind of thing? So I don't know if that helps.
A lot of pressure on the housing committee tonight.
It's all on you.
Any questions about the broad overview of the process that Ashley laid out? Comments about it? Okay, so before we dive into that, we're going to go to Eric for a few minutes to talk about the survey that went out and just share some high-level takeaways from a small sample of community members that provided input online. And there's a visual over behind these folks. No, I apologize. You have to. No, I think you're okay. I'm just sorry that you can't see it very well from where you're sitting.
What about neck massages afterwards?
Eric will talk through it. You don't need to see it. Yeah.
We won't dwell on it too much.
Right.
Thank you. This went out on the 4th and the 5th to social media, as well as the Hartford newsletter. Nothing in the responses is statistically relevant, and this was really just a high level, what sort of suggestions and ideas people might have, and it confirms a lot of what we already know. There were only 13 responses, and most of them came from residents. We got a pretty decent distribution across the villages. The plurality was from White River Junction, but all the villages were represented here. There were basically households. We didn't reach the renters, so that's something for us as a town to think about. Why aren't we reaching that segment of the population? Age ranges, it skewed 40 and up, but we did have a contingent of 25 to 39. And the businesses, we heard from one sole proprietor, and that's the only business feedback we got. So again, this was only out there in the field for a brief period of time. Current pain points and ideas. what costs are affecting you the most right now. Property taxes, given that it was a survey from the town, not terribly surprising that people are saying that. And it's, as we head into budget season, it's certainly something that will dominate those conversations and our focus. And we continue as a town to be focused on that. It's not like it's a new thing. Utilities, heating, fuel, electricity, and so on. Food came up a lot in the survey results. And then housing-related costs, which not a surprise to anyone here tonight. Actions the town could take, we did get a few suggestions. And just by way of context, we have shared this information with the committees and commissions, Housing, Homelessness, Energy, and Resilient Hartford. And so we'll be able to, and the board will also be able to digest it a little bit more in the coming weeks or months. We got some general ideas and some specific ideas about Wi-Fi downtown, mortgage assistance for new owners, and so on. Things the town could have, things that Hartford could consider that other towns do, land trusts and housing models, easier ADU construction. I mean, we're working on that as we speak. Questions for the town related to affordability, why do taxes keep rising? Obviously, as a town, we've got some explaining to do, and I think we are on solid footing. It's not like we run anything but a lean budget. Does the town truly consider resident input? We are trying. We are really trying. It's any forum like this is challenging, but we're going to continue to try. Questions about parking meters and some other second home rental policies and so on, and I hope we see changes at the state level as well. Everyone knows that when second homeowners have a lower tax rate than those of us who live in town, maybe something is not right. And you know, we'll be looking into all of these areas more, but that's just to give you a sense of some of the results that we got from the survey. So, if there are any questions on that? Okay, thank you.
I actually have a question.
Okay.
And this is something we can circle back to. But is this survey something that we think we want to try to improve upon and cast a further net with? Do we want to kind of try to continue collecting some of that information, or do we feel like maybe we would tie it to something more specific like this meeting maybe in the future?
That's a great question. We could have this go out again with maybe a more robust survey. This was put together by me on a Sunday night with a Monday morning deadline, and survey writing is not my expertise. So I think we can definitely make some improvements, and we're also going to. We hope to explore other modes of gathering information from the public. This is a static mode of gathering information. Perhaps in the future we'll be exploring more dynamic models where someone puts out a question or a comment, or we seed a conversation with a set of questions, and it evolves almost like it would on an online forum or a Facebook page, only with some moderation and some guardrails, so that it doesn't go off into dark places. It's a technology that we're going to ask staff to sort of pilot for us, I think, if the board is amenable to it. So there's some potential here for, and we could take this and improve it, I think, and put it back out if you'd like.
Thanks.
Sure.
Any other thoughts or comments or on the survey we've heard? Reactions? I'll just wait, Tim. I'm going to hold on you for 1 second. If there's anyone who hasn't spoken, I want to just make sure that, people can chime in before we hear from folks that have had a chance to speak. I'm not seeing any. Lexi, yeah.
I would just agree that I think it's great to keep the survey open and improve upon it, because I almost read the post like, if you're coming tonight, don't respond to the survey, but if you can't make it, do so. So it's also a chance for participants in the room to get what they want to say that they may not have time to say here tonight. So
Good point.
Yeah.
There are also some other surveys that went out over the last couple of years, which we had a long time period going out. One was particular to the downtown White River Junction as our first vibrancy grant, and a lot of input in there on a variety of ideas. And then the Housing Committee actually did an in-depth survey that was out there for several months on the topic of on rentals, and it was from the perspective of the landlord as well as from the perspective of the renters. So I think that there's some other data out there, there's a couple other things that might be worth just feeding into this process to give another blush as to what was noted. And those had very long lead times and notification and participation. And may even be something to build on with whatever the next survey might be.
Thank you.
Just one quick question. I missed the survey somehow. I just wonder if other people did too. So maybe when you keep it open, you could just make sure you post it lots of different places. Like I look at the Hartford Facebook page a lot, in addition to what Hartford puts out, the official one that J. Hawks puts out. But I'm just wondering what was did you get the number of responses you wanted, or was it fairly low?
It was fairly low, but this was mainly to see if we could capture ideas, really.
Okay.
More about
Yeah.
looking for creative, novel things that might not come out in this forum, or augmenting the ideas that we
Yeah.
that we hear tonight. So, but the point about keeping it going and making it more clear about what ideas we want is well taken.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I was just going to add, I like the idea of refining survey questions as kind of ideas begin to gel. I work on a lot of surveys with towns, and it's really difficult to get people to fill out a survey. So I just maybe be cognizant, like you don't want to get too long, keeping it shorter and really focusing on more than the important questions we want to ask, so that you're not overwhelming people, but still getting the information that you want to get from folks.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, it is, I just want to add, Robert, it is difficult to get people to interact. People just, even though, what I do is on the radio, and I may be casting out a larger net, it's a difficult thing. It's hard to make people participate when they don't want to. And particularly on municipal things, a lot of times people just feel, and it's not for the town of Hartford, but it's because, all the things that have gone on, is people are leery of local government. They really are. They feel like local government is not on their side and not trying to help, but just trying to take. And a lot of people, when they see things like that, they're just like, bad. I'm going to watch a rerun instead.
Okay, yes.
To say that the town itself, town of Hartford's reach to the public has greatly improved over the last year or so. The job that J.D. Hawks has been doing has really been reaching out and getting people. That's a great asset that I originally was a bit skeptical about it to begin with, but I've now, he's doing a great job with that. I think the more you work with him or whoever's in that position, but try to, it's just, people don't care about a thing until it's in their backyard. Zoning goes through, and then all of a sudden, hey, geez, I'm trying to put a thing up, but it doesn't work. Well, we're already at the meetings and so on. Well, that's a human thing. But the information that's been coming out and the invite of our board and our government here to come to meetings, that's how I happened to catch this in the Hartford Digest. Just saw this morning. So that's really good, and it's a big deal in getting the town in the turnaround.
Thank you for saying that. Really appreciate that feedback. And yeah, we are actively working to make sure that position is, supported and kind of fully developed to its full potential in terms of what we can do with, because we're really lucky that we do have a communication and media specialist. So continuing to work with them to spread the word really broadly, whether it's about events like this or information gathering opportunities. So yeah, thanks to hear that. Good to hear that we're going in the right direction, and we definitely have a lot more room to grow in that area. Okay, I think we should move into, since we have time and we have people,
Let's
if there's
do it.
other, yeah, okay, can we move into it? Let's do it. Okay,
Yeah,
so
so-
I'll just back to Ashley.
So which committee would like to volunteer to go first to report out their ideas? Or hopes or dreams? Jesse, okay.
Yeah,
You know, rock, paper, scissors?
and I want to say too, I think if you could each just say really briefly kind of what your committee or commission does, because there might be folks in the room who don't know or might want to join. Or so yeah, if you could just start by saying really short what you do and then what ideas you've generated in recent weeks about this topic.
Yeah.
And I'm going to start a 10-minute timer. If it
Okay.
goes off, we can be humans and assess.
Yeah,
But I'll set it just to keep us on track.
We can, first 5 minutes and then last 5 minutes for Q&A.
Mm-hmm.
Quick background for Jesse Pollard, Energy Commission. For folks who are less aware what the Energy Commission does, our stated goals include reduce energy demands for transportation across the town, save financial and natural resources through conservation, reduce overall energy consumption. And we kind of take a look at those goals and then take a look at the climate action plan that Eric Krause in 2019 and others largely championed as kind of a foundation of direction as to how we spend our limited volunteer time and which things we decide to focus on. And so like in 2021, 2022, there was a lot of little solar projects popping up all over town. The Planning Commission and the Select Board needed help vetting and assessing what a good development was. How do you say if this is something that is preferred? That's a siting designation that the municipality has the right to give to a proposed solar development to give it a little bit easier time permitting at the state level. So we spent a lot of time on solar a couple years ago. And since then, a lot of our focus has been on the heating and transportation sectors. So you're going to hear a few things that I'm listing that we had identified as things to do this year, being kind of consistent with that. And so since November of last year, we've had a pin in like a car share RFP. We have the municipal lot. In the past, there's been some interest in having town-owned vehicles or town-leased vehicles, maybe even a relationship with Zipcar, where we'd have a fleet of them, and that would allow largely renters and residents of like the downtown White River Junction and maybe another location around town. And maybe those individuals don't want to own a vehicle outright, but they would benefit from having access to one to go to Hannaford for a certain spice or a Target to pick up some kind of furniture. So that has been kind of an idea that has been floating.
Now, is that to generate income for the town of Hartford?
No, it was.
Revenue source, or?
It was. Part of it is stemming from a concern about parking in downtown White River Junction, and that's been a concern that people have elevated since long before I lived here. And so how do we make downtown White River Junction in particular more efficient with space use? And the idea was, okay, a lot of people don't need a dedicated, vehicle. They would just borrow one, and I don't know, I lived in Ithaca, so I used the Ithaca rideshare program and really enjoyed that. So that's kind of low-hanging fruit. We've spoken with vendors, including Zipcar, and their interests, and there's a lot of interest. They would just need like a backstop, right? If we are not doing it ourselves, as in we're not buying the vehicles and we're not operating this app for car share program, then we would partner with someone like a Zipcar. They have facilities out in Soro and with Dartmouth. And they would provide all the insurance. They would figure all that out. All they would request is if for some reason the town said we want to dedicate 5 individual parking spots in the municipal lot for 5 vehicles that would participate in this program, and we think it's going to be widely adopted, they would just ask that the town backstop their losses. So they would expect X number of dollars per month or per year, and whatever they did not get from the program, that the town agreed to backstop themselves. So that's one of 5 ideas I'm going to list through real quick as things that we've kind of been wrangling. Bike rack installs in downtown White River Junction and elsewhere in town. Had a lot of conversations with Bugbee, with Vital Communities, with Advanced Transit on how to kind of synergize all of the things they're working on, all the things that we'd like to see in downtown White River Junction in particular to make people feel more comfortable and safe e-biking or biking down to White River Junction. Concern about theft is a big issue. So ideally there would be bike racks that we could monitor and kind of backstop ourselves. Also related but unrelated, the Energy Commission will be updating our energy chapter these upcoming months, so that's kind of on our horizon. Every year, for those who don't know, we have a window dressers initiative where we work with window dressers as a nonprofit based out of Maine, and individual homeowners, renters, or commercial businesses will sign up for the window dressers program. They will come in, they will measure your windows, so that rather than having to weatherize your rental or your home every year with that sheet wrap plastic, we build these reusable inserts. So as long as you're not puncturing holes in them before, after, or during use, you can keep using them for 10 years or so, and that saves a lot of money on heating fuel. So we usually do about 200 units, about 30 plus households per year. That build is coming up this October. Sign up is, I believe, due at the end of this month if you want to participate in this upcoming window dressers initiative. And the last issue that the John Reed of the Planning Commission and Climate Action Steering Team flagged to me was the plug-in solar bill that was passed and signed into law. In years past, the Energy Commission and other nonprofits have kind of deprioritized solarized campaigns where the town or a nonprofit would buy a bunch of solar panels and we kind of figure it out. And a lot of that has to do with a lot of uncertainty with what the net metering rules were and who is actually participating in solarized and which audiences are we actually trying to reach. But this very accessible democratic concept of just plug-in solar panels seems to have a lot of promise, and there's still some skepticism that it would actually provide cost savings to users. So that's something that's been flagged recently as something the Energy Commission should take a look into. And I do think we expect to at least take a look at it, and whether or not we would recommend the town have some kind of plug-in solarized program that would come out of that review. As someone, or as a commission that's kind of been dialed into a lot of the recent chapter updates that the Planning Commission and planning staff have championed, a few of the recommendations that I just want to call out that came from the 2023 Housing Chapter update and the 2024 Economic Development Chapter update as things that I think are low-hanging fruit. The ED chapter proposes that a economic development committee be created, staffed by the Planning and Development Department, and I think that is very low-hanging fruit considering the other housing chapter initiatives include consider acting as a bridge, so the town acquire property and then rehabilitate and potentially sell to the private sector to redevelop. And then the chapter also calls for facilitate development of ADUs and multifamily development, which Lexi Webster here is, I believe, hired to do. But those, we have the PPP, the public-private partnership policy, 4 Ps, I believe. And that was also called explicitly by the ED chapter or the housing chapter, and the town has been making progress on those. And I don't necessarily think that that we should lose sight of those kind of tried and true proposals over the years that have been called out as actions that I think provide even more potential benefit now than they did a couple years ago. So I hope that those aren't dropped. Is that 10 minutes?
You have 1 minute remaining and 30 seconds. 1 minute, 30 seconds.
Yeah.
I'll throw in something else, energy and buildings related. As I tour around the different town buildings, I see a lot of deferred maintenance. And for those who understand long-term building issues, deferred maintenance always ends up costing more when you do get around to fixing it. So setting a schedule and undertaking that deferred maintenance and incorporating it into it, substantial weatherization insulation projects, maybe even to the point of a schedule for decarbonizing all the buildings and getting them off of fossil fuels, could have a long-term substantial impact on affordability or costs, town municipal costs.
Thanks, Ted. One comment on that is the Energy Commission really did support the idea that we hire a facilities manager, which I believe the Select Board did make that allocation this year. I'm not sure that position's been filled, but that was made with that exact comment in mind.
Hasn't been filled, or I don't think it's been posted yet, but yeah, that'll be up in upcoming months. The town will be hiring a facilities manager. It's like a future movement in that realm for sure. Okay, that was excellent. So we're going to continue with this round idea where we'll go to the next commission, and then in the second round is when we'll bring more voices in to hear people's reactions and thoughts and see some connections made across the ideas that we're putting up here.
Awesome. So who would like to go next? We have Resilient Hartford, Kyle.
Sure, I can go. Hi everyone, Kyle Katz. As I mentioned in the introduction, I'm with Resilient Hartford. As you may be aware, resilience is quite a broad term. The committee was founded mid-2010s and has been focused on a number of resilience-oriented projects since that time. And it has kind of run the spectrum. In kind of 2015 to 2020, the committee did a lot of workshops, and they invited people with expertise in various fields. It can be emergency management or housing or land use, and they would give presentations on these resilience-related topics. In 2020, 2021, around that time, it was before I joined the committee, the focus shifted to looking at food security and developing a food forest at Clifford Park. And that has been the primary project since that time. It's gone through a certain amount of evolution, given that we had a big flood in 2023, and Clifford Park is in the floodplain, and so the whole park filled up with water, and we're looking at the food forest and saying, is this the best place to put an Abenaki garden and a bunch of fruit trees and nut trees? And so that has been shifting in focus. This past spring, we've started a new project, and these are all long-term projects, but one that probably ties more into affordability, and that's exploring options for a tool lending library, and whether that could be beneficial in the community. There are some hurdles to this in terms of where it would be housed, because you need someone to be there to be able to check tools out, get tools returned. Libraries make good locations for this, but we currently haven't located a possible housing site for it. A survey did go out, and there was a lot of positive feedback on the need for a tool lending library. It would be highly beneficial for people that need to do basic home repairs, appliance repairs, things like that. The challenge is logistically, how do you create one and where does it live? Another idea could be looking, what Resilient Hartford has done before in terms of these workshops, but a lens toward affordability, and bringing people together in that way, and maybe having a potluck and covering a specific topic in a way that conveys information for people that maybe improve their life in some way. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. We have other projects too, like the hazard mitigation plan, but that's hazard mitigation, which doesn't dovetail nicely with affordability.
Thanks, Kyle. Is there anyone else? I know Tad, you're on Resilient Hartford as well. I don't know if there are any other committee members here. Yeah, do you want to?
Brattleboro has a tool lending library that was specifically set up to help people grow and process their own food. So that could have a direct impact on lowering costs and increasing or helping with affordability. If something like that were to be implemented here.
Can I?
Skills exchange program, I feel like is what you had called it. Kyle, does
Yeah,
that describe
yeah,
it,
so-
Tad? Yeah.
Tad, I think you brought this up maybe in the last Resilient Hartford meeting, that there was a program down in Brattleboro that had, it was almost like you could offer a skill set and, you know, you could be providing tax assistance or something, you'd get credits and then you could return that, I'm not sure.
There's a time bank, what's called time bank, that does that. There is one, or has been one in the White River Valley. I haven't heard much about it lately, but there was one established here.
That's essentially like a bartering kind of system.
You trade your time, you offer your skills into the community, and then if you need something like mowing the lawn or childcare or bike repair, you put it out, and someone with those skills gives you their time, and you do the swap online with the hours.
It's
One for one.
It's established practice.
And what did you call it? Time
banks.
Time banks.
That's great.
And could I just ask one clarifying question, since we still have a bit of time left? So is there then kind of been like a resolute, or I should say like an understanding that like the tool lending library maybe isn't feasible, or it's still on the table and we're just working through the complications?
It's certainly more of a long-term project. I think we're exploring whether do these options already exist in separate places in the Upper Valley. I think there's been talk that maybe there's a tool lending library that could be more farm-focused. There's also like a library of things at Hilton. I think there might be a tool lending library at the Upper Valley Trails Alliance. So we're kind of exploring, like, is there a need for a new one, or do these exist and people may not necessarily know where to connect with those resources?
Yeah, I'm also the liaison to Resilient Hartford, and I liked the idea of having it be somewhat focused towards weatherization. Like, because when I think about the affordability connection there, I work in construction and I work for Upper Valley Habitat for Humanity, and I can't tell you how many phone calls we get every single day from people who are saying, I have critical home repairs. Either I need ADA accessibility features, or the second most common is that their house is just so inefficient that their heating bills are just unmanageable. And then of course we have organizations like Cover Home Repair who can go in and help with some of those things. Although I think I just heard that they maybe ended their insulated skirting. I don't know. I was on the website, or maybe they're pausing. I have to look back at that. But there's this huge need around areas of like insulating crawl spaces and attics. And a lot of folks, we've learned from like the DIY builders in the area, they're willing to do the work, but they can't afford the tools. Like they're like, I can't invest in a table saw and a chop saw and all the materials to insulate my basement. So that was kind of where my mind was going, like make it more kind of, weatherization focused.
There has been a group working to try to make this tool lending library happen that is not associated with any committee, just an informal group of Hartford and other Upper Valley residents. At this point, it's kind of been put on hold because there hasn't been a critical mass of people to carry it through. And we haven't gotten the support that we'd hoped for from the town.
Okay. Cool. Any other Resilient Hartford thoughts, ideas?
That's all for the moment.
Okay, awesome. That's great. Well, then that brings us to the Committee on Housing and Homelessness. John, or whoever you'd like to present.
Well, I'll start. I'm John, I'm the chair, but I have some of my fellow committee members here. Hopefully you guys chime in if you feel like there's things that I missed. So we got established, I think, maybe about 3 years ago, and our focus is obviously housing. And during that time, we've dabbled in a few different things. We've been trying to make connections with other networks and other resources in order to educate ourselves, and also host community forums in order to educate the community on issues related to housing. So we've invited Home Share Vermont to give presentations to the town. And for those who don't know, Home Share is basically exactly like it sounds, but it's a formal organization that matches hosts and guests, can be an affordable way of finding housing, although its focus is sort of taking the time to match folks as opposed to matching a lot of folks at the same time. And then we conducted a rental housing survey that Lori had mentioned, where, surprise to no one, we found exorbitant rental costs here in town. We've also connected with the Cooperative Development Institute to think through how to do some legacy planning for manufactured home parks, to think about how you could set up, potentially begin to do the groundwork for setting up resident-owned communities for some of the manufactured home parks in our town. Manufactured housing is one of the last bastions of affordable housing. Unfortunately, a lot of park owners are aging out of their ownership, and as they sell, it has become a target for speculative investment, and so resident-owned communities are a model for preserving that form of affordable homeownership. However, that kind of takes time and education for the park residents themselves to become, I think, confident and develop the technical skills necessary to manage a major financial acquisition like that. Let's see, we've hosted film screenings, what was it called? Just Getting By film, focused on food insecurity and housing insecurity in Vermont. And probably our longest running effort that is about to launch, thanks to the wonderful work of Lexi Webster here, was to establish what we're calling Hartford's Big Little Build, that is focusing on small-scale development opportunities and bringing in technical assistance and small financial resources. They're small, but they're at least could potentially go into pre-production costs like permitting or hiring an architect or an engineer for any property owner, homeowner that's looking to either add an additional housing unit to their property or to do, move forward on some small-scale housing effort. And I think, I'm going to put a pin in that because I think that isn't necessarily going to result in immediate affordability solutions, but I think from a long-term standpoint, it's something that is a willing effort to engage in, and there's also things happening at the state level that we can align ourselves with to make that happen. But I think from some of the more immediate actionable opportunities, I do think that, and part of the kind of impetus for this affordability discussion was the concern around fuel costs, and I think that there's a lot of alignment between our three committees around issues related to, as you're saying, Ashley, weatherization, and so how do we connect communities with, or connect residents with the resources that can go into low-cost weatherization services for their home, partner with Efficiency Vermont, maybe host an energy resource fair, things like that, as it relates to the cost of housing, the cost of energy is really important, and if we can, mitigate some of those costs in the short term, that could be beneficial. I think that it would be great if there were this kind of immediate action that could take place, but I'm not sure on the authority that the town has to be able to execute this, and that would be around the issues of rent stabilization and or tax stabilization. I think that this has maybe been explored in the past. Other municipalities have looked into it, but I think that this is something that seems to largely exist within the purview of the state's authority to do. Whether or not it's something that we can try and see if it works. I know Jesse's thought about putting something like that in the charter to see if it can, gather enough of the political will and then gain enough support to actually pass. But I mean, that would be something that could, at least if we had the ability to do it, have an immediate impact to be able to just put a stop on the inflating rents that we're seeing. I know that the town is able to, I think, enter into tax stabilization agreements on the commercial side of things, but I think my understanding is that that doesn't work on the residential side, at least according to state law, although that could be something to explore. But I think really what I find very promising about, again, long-term affordability as it relates to housing is to take what we're developing with the Big Little Build project and combine it with the stuff that's going on in the state right now that they're doing through their 802 Homes initiative. And ultimately, where I see the most important thing happening is the ability for the state to utilize its purchasing power to purchase bulk, off-site constructed modular homes that then can be applied, dispersed throughout our community in ways that bring down, to your point, John, the concern around the cost of construction, be able to bundle sites together that require very little site work to be able to make actual construction more affordable. And I think that, we've put a lot of emphasis in housing discussions around, I think, a very vulgar interpretation of supply and demand, thinking that if you just build and build and build, that it's going to result in lower costs. But I think that if we can actually coordinate our developments in ways that are responding to the needs of residents in our community or aspirational residents in our community, then I think we can actually provide affordable housing as opposed to just hoping that, again, these supply and demand dynamics just even out and bring down the cost. So I really see this hope that if we can pool together resources, take advantage of state programs, coordinate amongst ourselves, whether it's property owners or it's municipal owned land, and figure out how to do a type of bulk development project that has a particular use to it for people that need affordable housing here in our town.
Ooh, that's good.
Did I miss anything?
I would just say that we've tried also to coordinate with other towns and see what other towns are doing, and we continue to do that.
Yeah. Again, and I don't think, so that coordinated to that piece, it's not just coordinating amongst ourselves in our town, but there are other ways. The more we can get people to participate in, I think, a bulk purchase type housing process, the more that we can reduce those costs. And whether, even if it's not a housing unit that is sited in Hartford, but if it's part of a bundled acquisition, if it's in Enfield, Lebanon, Norwich, we can bring down those total costs and then apply that.
Maybe they work in Hartford.
Maybe they work in Hartford. Yeah. So. But also go Hurricanes.
Can I just, I have like a million thoughts, I'm going to try to stay focused, but John, what's the status of the pursuing an actual rental registry? That I know that has been, and also other hat that I wear is I am a rental property owner, and I love the idea of a rental registry, so I am curious about that. And then just you also sparked another thing with the sort of bulk purchasing. Years ago, you joined the Chamber of Commerce and you could get get in on bulk purchasing of fuel oil from local fuel companies, like a pre-buy, we do a pre-buy for our propane and heating oil. Like if there were a way that the town could sponsor some sort of bulk fuel purchasing for residents, like that could be an interesting thing to pursue. But I'm curious if the rental registry is still
Yeah, I mean, I think it was something that we definitely discussed, and I think that I could see that being a helpful mechanism. Particularly, I appreciate you coming from the perspective of a landlord and and finding utility in that. I could also see it just structured almost more as, I don't know, a landlord-tenant cooperative relationship of, where people know where to find landlords that are particularly sensitive to wanting to offer affordable housing options. I think there's a few different landlords here that I've talked to that are actually understanding of the pressures of renters in our community and would be willing to, I think, participate in that kind of network, whether you want to call that a registry or simply
But I don't think there's any way to get to stabilization, rent stabilization without having a registry, so it would be a step. And like to the point of John phrasing that we have a communications director now, I will say that was years worth of work from the Racial Equity Committee, like asking the town, like this is what it takes to get some of the stuff. So the fact that this board is so engaged and receptive is like half the battle. so that the committee is coming up with some of these really wonderful ideas and then getting to this point. Anyway, I'm just really thrilled.
One more, we have time.
Yeah,
one
one
more
thing I would like to add on top of, John mentioned the Hartford's Big Little World program and 802 homes at the state level. Hartford has also been approached by VSHA, Vermont State Housing Authority, to participate in their Move In Vermont program. And that is basically about taking town-owned vacant land, not in the floodplain, and putting manufactured housing on it. Unfortunately, Hartford does not own a lot of vacant land that is not in the floodplain or not already parks or pools, etc. But we did find one. It's still in the very early conversations of just interest at this point. But that is a potential avenue to look at when things go for sale at tax sale, the town taking a more active role and getting involved, and we would actually have, a plan lined up what to use that land for.
And if I think that that's a connection to the point that Jesse was making about the town taking proactive role when it comes to development opportunities. Because again, I mean, similar to the way that you have to legacy plan around manufactured home parks, is you want the town to protect the interests of the larger community against people who might be a little bit more predatory, to say it bluntly.
If I may, that's great, and that's the trajectory in which you're going. When towns get involved, okay, to put pressure on the state.
Yeah.
Because again, this is all about what the town of Hartford can control. Now, you can. Okay? And so that collective voice, because there's state land here that can be utilized, that's not being utilized.
Or railroad land.
The unfortunate thing is, I happen to know people at the Circle K in Lebanon, they've worked full time. They live in the woods because they have nowhere else to go. They don't earn enough money to pay the rent. That's a reality, and it's terrible.
Yeah.
It's terrible. And it's not just here. It's not just in Hartford. It's nationwide.
Yeah.
Well, that is a really great segue, I think, into our second round. So, yeah, I think if it's okay with everyone, I hate to use my power as a standing person, but I'll kick off the 30 minutes. And there's just one item that was kind of in some email chains and in some meetings that somebody else also just mentioned that I want to circle back on to kick us off, if that's okay. And then we can just kind of open it up for I think if you've had a pressing thought during any of those, just raise your hand and then we'll make sure everyone gets a chance to speak. So the thing that I wanted to piggyback on, all three committees I think kind of touched at some point on the fuel assistance topic. And I think the conversations varied anywhere from creating a resource page for existing programs so that it would be on the town website, go out in newsletters, so residents can just see kind of consolidated in one place. Here's the assistance programs for fuel, but also we can expand that to other things. But then the idea of a group, I don't know what you call it, a buy-in where the town could
purchase.
Yeah, have a bulk purchase. And I think Kathy Geiger from Energy Commission, you were not there that one day, Jesse.
In the airport.
Kathy Geiger from the Energy Commission mentioned this idea of could the town, I assume we already have a bulk purchase arrangement for our own facilities, but could we expand that to residents? Is there a way that we could do that? And I don't know if anyone in this room is an expert on yes or no, but is that something that committees are interested in diving into? Is that something the public thinks would be worthwhile?
In Lebanon, when I went out to bid for the city for our fuel contracts, I asked if they would, specifically, if they would allow residents to buy at a discounted rate. And I chose based on not just the lowest cost from the supplier, but whether they allowed that, what the discount would be for residents. So it is possible to do something like that, at least in New Hampshire.
I was just going to say, the thing is, it's something that would be negotiated with the different fuel companies. So, whoever the town currently works with, Coda, or whatever, or Simple Energy, or whoever, for the different fuel purchases. You do a request for proposals for a fuel purchase program. that like is, the town would have to guarantee a certain number of gallons would be purchased. Anyway.
And then I guess my follow-up to that is, how do we go about, or sorry, did you have another, is there?
I was gonna say, and, you know, if you're talking about your residents, it's gonna depend if they have an underground tank or on top of the, you know, big tank up, because if they're switching companies to join the group, you know, there's lots of, what's the logistics of how you join this group?
Yeah.
So, yeah, there'd be a lot of, if the company's allowed, there's also a lot of logistical things to get it to actually work.
Yeah.
And like, I already signed my contract for this upcoming year.
So
Because
that's
this is when you start signing this now, like, before peak season.
Well, I floated that out there, I'll put it on. So this list is our, like, from the committees, what's already happening or is of interest to them, and then this list will be like all these other ideas that crop up.
Yeah, I just want to kind of go off of the bulk buying idea, and it's indirectly related to affordability, and I don't know what the answer would be, but towns buy lots of other things in bulk, like culverts and salt and sand and things like that. Would it make a difference if towns went in together to bulk purchase on those things or not? Because that would have an effect on the overall budget.
I mean, I know that's already being done at these certain areas of the town.
Yeah, do you want to say it loud, Lori?
There are situations, I think, where the town is already doing some bulk purchasing on a regional level or bulk services and that kind of thing. But it'd be interesting to get more information about, is that still going on? What are the areas? What, you know, that kind of thing. There might be some historical information there.
Eric?
It's a good point, Kyle, and I think where the real power lies is coming in under the under state level contracts, actually. And fortunately, we have a DPW director who's relatively new, but has a lot of contacts and is exploring that. The board asked about that last year because we can see what the state purchases at, and their price is appreciably lower than what the town purchases at, and so it's an obvious like how can we get your price? And so it's an ongoing conversation, and talk to your legislative delegates about like, is there any legislation? What might Department of Transportation, what nudge might DOT need to support that kind of thing?
I'm going to start down here.
Hi, my name's Greg Houston. One of the things I keep thinking about is when we're talking about these different potential helping programs, and this is working on when we're talking about the tool library, is we have other nonprofits and other groups in the Upper Valley that are providing some services, like if they're signing up for a fuel program, federal fuel program, speak, if that's even in existence anymore, you know, bringing in our nonprofit partners that are working with folks who are looking for assistance, whether it's the Haven Listen, SEVCA, or whoever, and making sure we know what they're doing to help people with affordability. So we have a picture, even the family center up there on Route 5 in Norwich, whatever, and having them, you know, educate us to make sure we're up to date with what they're doing to help people fill out applications, sign up stuff, you know, all that. So we have that picture, so we're not duplicating their efforts already, and what they're already doing.
And that plays into your
The
resource
resource
library.
page.
Yeah, and we talked about that with, anyway, some committee talked about it.
Yeah, I think we talked about the housing and homes.
Just also to bounce off of the Energy Commission's car share program, there was several years ago the community car program, and we tried to reinstate it, not as a municipal program, but we could not get an insurance policy to make it work. But I think there is some kind of purpose.
I've called providers and they are interested in leasing, you know, parking space or 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever we would be interested in releasing, but because it would be them, we would just have to release an RFP, right? That's the only thing getting in Zipcar's way, if Zipcar were to.
Yeah. Well, that's good because it had changed.
It did.
That's great
It used to
because
be.
Michelle Ollie was the point of contact for that.
Yeah.
And just
Was through the
on
Main
the
Street
tail,
Museum, yeah.
right, on the tail end of that, we actually reserved a spot in the town lot that it's gone right now because we didn't have the need for it, but we should definitely, that be a part of the solution is also having a reserved parking space.
Yeah, that's part of it.
So,
Just like, I don't want to follow up, so, and also the idea that like, a community car is not just less physical space, like housing affordability, housing is more affordable if you don't have to buy a car to live here. And if you can live here without a car and there's enough public transportation and that supplements that. So it does definitely supplement affordability. And my main point that I would like to make, which I guess kind of falls in with the VSHA stuff that Lexi was talking about, is, you know, for years I'm a former select board member and would hear a lot of people say how Hartford bears the brunt of our unhoused population because we have so many social services and we are burdened with all the, you know, I'm proud to live in such an empathetic and caring town. But I've run a small business in downtown White River for over 20 years, and 1 year ago I opened a shop in Hanover. And boy, let me tell you how starkly different it is. And I recently asked they're having a community meeting in September with the Hanover Police Department just to talk to local businesses, which I think is a great idea for Hartford to do too. I'm trying to make this brief, but basically, I asked one of the officers, when a Hanover police officer encounters an unhoused person, what is the practice? Like, what are the protocols in place? And they said, well, we usually bring them, we give them a night in the hotel in White River Junction. So they do drive them to White River Junction, pay for a night in the hotel, and then they leave. And they also give the 211.org resource for, you know, mental health, social, and substance usage. So anyway, it's sort of really demonstrated to me that this wonderful, wonderful town really does bear the brunt of a lot of I mean, our police officers are social workers, and even though we don't have enough social workers and unarmed first responders, like our police officers are trained to approach people carefully. My point being, I think there needs to be some leverage in which our town does officially reach out to the administration and the municipalities of Hanover and Norwich and say, why don't you purchase the 37 acres across from Fogg's Hardware and build affordable housing? And you know, we still have our services here, but put your money where your mouth is because you're not paying for any of it. And I think there needs to be official channels. There was a time when I was on the board that we were meeting with a couple of the Lebanon select board members. We got a Norwich person to come once. The Hanover board members were invited and never came. It was a very informal thing that we were trying to talk about these kind of things. So that is like I think we need to seriously try to get them to help.
Thank you.
And not have our taxpayers also pay for all of the, so that is my main point that I want to make.
Yeah.
So why hasn't it happened yet? I mean, it's 2027, I've
No,
been here
because
since 2018.
I don't think there's ever been any formal proposal. We've had people complain to us.
I mean, like, Lebanon has a what, part-time winter homeless shelter?
Not anymore.
Not anymore, but, so they got rid of that.
No, it folded into the new one from the Haven, the new shelter that's opening.
But it's not open yet. And the point is, Lebanon is not carrying their part of the load.
Right. I think there's always
Years
been that kind of
ago,
discussion.
I was on a team that tried to permit a Haven shelter on Mechanic Street. And it was a perfect location, and it would have, having a new building in that neighborhood would have elevated the status of the neighborhood. I mean, it was so run down. It got to public comment, and the public comment was, that crap belongs in White River.
Yes. And as a historical note, because I'm a member of the Hartford Historical Society, and I live in a building that was built during the American Revolution. we've been having a homeless population in the town of Hartford since the railroads came up, because the homeless people traveled on rails, and they
Right.
were starting to unload in our town back in the 1840s. So we've been dealing with this homeless problem in our town long before our current social service agencies. So it's been over a century, or actually, no, I can't do math. It's been a year.
I think I saw Tatiana and then Kyle.
Whatever, I can't do math.
I have a few different points. One, to this most recent point, it's actually illegal to have set up a homeless camp in New Hampshire. And the police in Lebanon are instructed to routinely sweep through those areas, throw all the equipment away, food, clothing, everything, and chase the people out.
So poverty is becoming criminalized.
Yes,
Yes.
in New Hampshire. Also, weatherization. Vital Communities organized, and a bunch of us participated in, an annual weatherization fair that we put a lot of effort into it, really good information to help people save money, and very few people showed up. I last spring went to the Waterbury Leap Fair,
Oh, so good.
which is fantastic. It is an entire high school gym full of tables with companies and information and vendors, and just a fantastic, exciting learning environment. So one idea would be for Hartford and maybe surrounding communities to up the game on that and make that a priority. Another just quick idea, an affordability feedback button on the town's homepage. Do you have an idea to help the town be a more affordable place or reduce costs? Click here. I and a bunch of people, energy professionals in the area, including a bunch of low-income advocacy groups, sponsored primarily by Listen, formed what was called the Energy Advisory Council that ran for a few years and sort of consolidated all of the programs and benefits that are available to help low-income people and people suffering from what is called the energy burden to survive. And it might be time to resurrect that committee. It sort of died a couple of years ago, but especially with energy prices just continuing to go up and up and up with what's happening, and geopolitics, it might be a good idea to resurrect that. To the point that Gwen made about tree locking in her prices, the best time to do that is actually March. And we saved the town of Brattleboro, I think, $200,000 annually by switching from fall bulk purchasing to spring bulk purchasing. So just a recommendation to whoever handles fuel purchasing for the town, and maybe make that something to advise people to
This
do.
spring, that probably wouldn't be the case.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I volunteer. I live in an HOA, and the HOA has been instructed to actually hold recently on by and wait out this turbulence. So, just a data point.
Yeah. And then Kyle?
Yeah, I'm just thinking of the list that we have and all the ideas, and many of them seem much more long-term. I think, Tad, your kind of button on the home page could be a very quick win. And I'd like to hear more about like other potential quick wins. I know like one thing I was thinking about early on in the meeting is, you know, when people are budgeting, and there are a lot of things in your budget that are quite static, like your housing costs you don't have much control over, your utility bills you don't have much control over. You could get heat pumps and maybe lower your heating bill, but that requires you to spend a little bit of money to get the heat pumps, so you kind of need that savings to begin with. I think one of the biggest cost items for people on a weekly basis are groceries. And I can't think of many resources out there that are available. I'm sure they exist, but I don't know them, of how, like, what's out there for discounted groceries or almost no cost groceries.
The
They
Haven.
could.
The
The
Haven.
Haven,
The
okay.
Haven and listen and so still, I think.
So it
I
could
see
be like,
Lebanon on the bottom of the golf course. They have 1 hour a week on Saturday mornings for their food shelf.
Woodstock's expanding.
10 to 1.
Woodstock's expanding theirs.
The Havens is, 10 to 4:30, Monday
Okay.
through Friday. And you would be amazed the food that's there. I mean,
Yeah.
it's overwhelming sometimes.
So this is all donated?
Yeah.
Yes, by,
The grocery stores and
Grocery
Willing
stores.
Hands and
They buy
just
some
local
So,
people.
it's
And
gonna
they
be,
have the state of
folks,
Vermont
Folks, it's going to be real difficult for anyone that wants to watch
Yeah.
the recording if we're all speaking at the same time. So let's just bear in mind there'll be an audience either online now or later. So thank you.
And I wanna give a quick time check-in. We have about 13 minutes left on this section, and Kyle was saying, like, I think maybe starting to hone in on what are some quick wins, what are some of these many long-term plans that make sense. And if I can, I just want to throw out like 2 maybe seemingly radical ideas for folks to mull over, which relate to some of these. So one of them that I've been thinking about personally is, could the town have a fuel assistance fund? And the people that I'm going back to are, when I canvassed, when I ran for select board, I can't tell you how many, especially elderly people I talked with, who just were generally concerned that they weren't going to be able to afford to stay in their home between property taxes and fuel cost. And so I do feel that there really are people who this winter are going to be, and to speak to the nonprofit piece a little bit, there is fuel assistance programs. I'm not aware of any federal ones that have been active, but SEVCA helps distribute several fuel assistance programs, and they run out, and it's limited. And so yeah, I want to throw out the idea of town fuel, and then I have one other one, which was I lost it, so I'll leave you with that one.
To build on what you just said, I think the way to do that might be, because to administer that could be very challenging, but maybe you could do something through SEVCA saying, if a person is a resident of Hartford, that they could take that as one of the funding sources for it. And so if the town decides that they want to do a fuel assistance, based on whatever SEVCA has as their guidelines or whatever, and then if it's a Hartford resident, then you could say, okay, we can contribute X number of dollars per Hartford resident.
Yeah, I think partnering with a
administratively, we don't have to
partnering with a nonprofit. And then the other piece of that is because, like, obviously there's also, those residents are paying the taxes that we have to raise to do that. And so part of my thinking too was that we would attempt to partner with to find a grant program that would basically, at least be matching, if not, raise more of the funds that would be distributed than would come from the town fund. So that's just an idea. I don't know how much interest there is in that.
Yeah, this is also ideas that haven't been brought up. We can.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so you just mentioned the property taxes, and I don't think we've talked about that yet. Is that anything, are there any ideas, or is that non-negotiable, or discussable, or like what are your categories? Actionable. Is there any discussion on the select board or anyone else?
Yeah.
We're going to provide guidance to staff. The board provides guidance annually. And it's in draft form right now, Beth, so we can't give you a definitive answer, but one of the ideas is to look at both a baseline and then 2 other scenarios that involve additions and scenarios that involve reductions. And so some of those reductions, what target we shoot for, like relative to past fiscal years, is still to be determined. But prominent in our thinking is in past years, for example, during COVID, from December to March, the world changed dramatically. and certainly it has not become more stable. And so part of our thinking is we sort of need a good, solid plan that we can put in place that has a serious reduction in taxes. But we also don't want to overreact with that. So we just need to understand too that the town provides valuable services, and so if it reduces someone like me, if it reduces my property taxes $40 a year, that's not going to break the bank for me, but it might help some other people.
Right.
We're providing a lot of valuable services. So the short answer, if maybe I passed that point, but we're looking at it pretty seriously. We're looking at multiple scenarios.
Right. I think somebody over.
Yeah, well, Kim and then Tim.
I just want to add too, like Eric said it earlier, the town budget is super lean. Then there's the school budget, which is like 3 times more than the town's budget, so there's that. But also, there's not a lot of ways to actually like cut the taxes.
Right.
But finding new ways recently to increase revenue, like the new local option sales tax, has added how many hundreds of thousands of dollars to the
1.3, 1.2 mil.
1.2 million. So that was something that is still, I think it is a regressive tax, we all know, but like also finding other sources of income.
To offset.
Yeah.
Well, I think that leads to the broader discussion. Sorry, Tim, I'll let you go.
That's okay. I've wrestled with this for a long time, and in communities in Vermont, we for years and years have sold the concept that if you grow as a town, you'll benefit because you'll generate taxes, et cetera, and it's like a circle. And unfortunately, I don't think anybody from the school is here to defend themselves tonight. But let's go over the school. The school tax and funding formulas in Vermont are a train wreck disaster. And here's why. I used to go to school meetings over and over again, and they would promise that they'd say, well, if you get your CLA right, that tax rate's going to be dropped, and it would drop a lot. And we were essentially promised this for years, and I was an advocate for reassessing this town because you are rewarded big time back then on school funding by if you put your CLA at 100%, we were going to see a dramatic drop in the school side taxes.
And CLA is common level of appraisal
Vermont,
for anyone who doesn't know.
Our Vermont leaders should be embarrassed because they caved, and here's what they did. When we got our assessment done and we went to 100%, I was excited, to be honest with you, because I knew 2 things were going to happen. One, the municipal rate was going in half, which is exactly what happened. Because our municipal rate used to be about $1.02, I think it's like 60 cents now or something of that nature. So we were able to take the municipal rate and cut it in half. Now it's kind of smoke and mirrors, because as you guys know, it's like the grand list affects the tax rate, et cetera, et cetera. But we achieved the objective on the municipal side. On the school side, it was a train wreck, because what happened was the legislature in Vermont said, oh, we feel really bad about all the communities in Vermont that weren't able to do assessments. So they monkeyed around with the formula, and we got no benefit in Hartford for the work, the money, and the effort that we spent to do the right thing. And that is a tragedy, because honestly, your tax bill for this particular cycle and the last one would have been dramatically lower if they had adhered to the policy that they had in place for years. And for me, it's embarrassing. And it was a lot of money for a lot of our residents. So in Hartford, we're in kind of a dilemma, because we are a high-growth town. I think we have the 5th or 4th largest grand list in the state. We have a huge amount of taxable property. But we should be rewarded for that. But unfortunately, on the school side, as we know, fiscal policy is send it to Montpelier and dole it back out on a per-pupil basis. It's a flawed policy. It's really impacting Hartford in a very negative way, and I feel like we should be having those conversations to discuss what's fair fiscal policy there.
I'm going to add it to the list, and Sarah, right?
I've been sitting here sort of thinking, well, this is great, really. This town has a lot of really committed people working toward whatever little scraps of improvement we can possibly even attempt to achieve. And I'm kind of looking around thinking, yeah, it's really good that this town and the people of the town are doing all this. But basically, we have a dumpster fire in the world at large, and we know that. And we are kind of continuously going to be the victims of that dumpster fire because we don't have the fire extinguishers for it. So I'm thinking, we can make a difference, and all of these things will make a difference. But I also think that it's not going to quickly or even maybe over the long term really change the way that the rich and the poor have this immense inequity that is toxic in every way. It's going to be really hard to change that. And what I really also would like to promote, and this is what I kind of work at in my little area, is community, and which means neighborhoods, people who are looking out for each other. When trees came down 4 years ago in a winter storm, somebody had a charger that we could all charge our, in the car. We could all charge our cell phones. Somebody else had a chainsaw to start taking some of the trees down. Some of these neighborhoods, even as nice as they are, people don't really know each other. But I think that we're going to have to do some of this stuff sort of in the trenches, like with one another.
Like neighborhood block parties hosted by Resilient Hartford, maybe? That's been an initiative. Should I put that on the list?
But I really think this is good work, but I'm also frustrated with how so much of it is like a long-term struggle towards incremental tiny changes, which will benefit. But man, you guys have a hard road ahead.
I think I saw Kim and then I forgot your name.
The couple of, the Hartford community, the downtown White River Junction community is genuine and is real and it is valuable and people appreciate it and people recognize it and I hear about it every single day. And when you think of that, the public-private partnership policy stuff, that Hotel Coolidge block being central to the downtown of White River Junction, the economic development consultants said it explicitly. If the town does not have some sense of involvement in that development, then it really has no influence on the character and the vitality and the sense of community that is the center of White River Junction. Because if just the highest bidder comes in and takes that and does whatever they want to it, it is going to change the whole dynamic. Or worse yet, I had an event in there last weekend and ceiling tiles were falling down in the ballroom. It will just collapse and it will be a giant albatross in the middle of our beautiful, vibrant, creative downtown. So it's really critical that we.
But I think in many ways it's the envy of the Upper Valley too.
It really is. It really is. I mean, I have my shop in Hanover now and people are like, oh, it's so nice to have a little White River in Hanover. It's like a little places. So there's other wonderful places in Hanover. But yeah.
Awesome. I'm going to go to Robert and then we'll try to start closing in on some.
To your point about the Coolidge Hotel, I actually lived there.
Currently now?
Because, no, I didn't.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I found someplace affordable to rent. And even though I earned about 30% higher than the national average, I still can't afford to buy a home. And that's a shame. Because the thing is, the reality is that it's about 12% higher nationwide to live in Hartford. And on top of that, about the average salary is about 5% below the national average. So starting out, the average person is 17% behind the okay. Now, again, keeping in mind, there's only so much that the town of Hartford can do. And it's just like the bulk purchasing and things like that. Well, that's going to need to be administered. It's going to need to be distributed. So it's going to be a cost. So then it becomes counterproductive to the affordability. And Sarah, and to your point, you're exactly correct. Okay, we are living in that dumpster fire. Okay, and these small incremental things, they're not going to make that big of a difference. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that we just sit back and say, hey, forget it. Yes, we all need to do the most that we possibly could do, just like in our households. We make decisions in our households. Okay. And municipalities, they need to operate under the same scrutiny, and that's just given. And but the option tax, 1% option tax, that was initiated to reduce the burden of property owners, but yet it just moved 1% from here to there, and at the end of the day, that 1% option tax is actually costing the homeowner higher than their 1% property tax, because people purchase goods and services all the time. On top of the state 6% sales tax. And it's like, you know, it's not about, and we all know as individuals, it's not about the amount of dollars that you have, it's how you manage them.
That's not true. I'll trade you a whole bunch of dollars.
Right, well, right.
For you know,
But
for
the
a
thing
plan
is that
of,
this is what we all have to do,
budget
right?
plan.
We have to decide, you know, how are we gonna best spend this money to best benefit us?
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I do want to
agree,
just give a
though.
time check that we are
We want
coming.
to also maybe hear from some people that haven't spoken.
Yeah. So I added 10 minutes to our timer, and I think that's okay if everyone is okay. John.
Well, I'll just say, would you let me know when I might have a few moments to do a little bit of a discussion? Or is this the time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, you know, I've been through this since 1970, 1971. I was first assistant general manager in Hartford at college. Our population at that time was 7,000 people. Our population now these are just general figures, our population now is about 10,000 people. That's not a gigantic growth. Back in those years, and in housing and so on, this is a community that had a governing body, and the governing body's job was to do certain things, and their job was to, and I'll go through it, was to, for police, public safety, roads, highways, public buildings, water and sewer, recreation planning, and town service officer, okay? The town got along pretty well, and people, they bought first-time homes, and we got going through it. Over this period of time, as I've seen it, and I've been involved in some of it, I don't get into all that, but I've been in the legislature, I was a select person, I've been in the real estate business for 45 years, right here. And slowly but surely, the shift from the town taking care of itself and the people taking care of themselves has shifted to government, to government agencies, to relying on the state, trying to solve problems for people. I don't know where we lost the idea that private business, the business community in general, they have always, until such time as the thing started to kind of roll backwards or roll forward, they were always able to make this thing work. Now, I believe, no, let's forget the I believe. What I can see is that there are places where the select people, the select board, and the governing body here, if you take care of our facilities, our water and sewer facilities, our buildings, our structures, our police, the things that people cannot do for themselves, that will strengthen us as a community. There are places where you can take some actions as a governmental body that can be effective. This is a very well organized, very thoughtful process you're going through here. This is no shade on that. But what I'm saying is that you got to pick. You can't. All these things there's just too many things to be messing with here to get this affordability thing. You got to look it through it, and you got to say, here's some stuff that we can do because it's within our power and we're not within our ability to get it done. Now, I don't know all of them, and I haven't really, remember I saw about the meeting this morning, so I haven't really prepared any type of thing, but for years I've wanted to maybe make some of this known. We're talking about things that can be done and things that can't be done. So what's happened in the last 40 years? We've got a two-family income. to people in the family who work and the kids, you know, that it's just a very much different personal situation for people. Government regulations have layered and layered and layered and layered to the point where it could possibly stifle private entrepreneurship and the private sector from being able to perform without unnecessary interference. Now, when I talk about these things that were layers and layers, they're all good layers. They do good things. They make the building stuff better. It makes it a prettier environment, or maybe a little more functional or whatever. But without knowing it, as time went on, it just kept building and building and building. What can you do about that? The Selectboard can do something about that. You're a board that represents the people of the town of Hartford, and we have representatives in Montpelier, and they work for us too. I suggest that there has to be consideration of what can you do to make it so the private sector can accomplish these things. What's stopping them from accomplishing these things? I would suggest that things like you invite the building industry and the contractors and so on to a meeting, and you say, what is going on that makes it so you can't build this stuff for a price that people can afford? That's where the hitch is. The price of materials, the price of labor. You can't do anything about that. Inflation. You can't do anything about that. Taxes. You can do something about that. Multiple offers on properties. You can't do anything about that. We think that somebody maybe setting these prices or what's going on. These prices are driven by the public. The public is driving these prices, not they're multiple offer situations. And one of the reasons for this is the scarcity of available units and housing drives the prices up. Why is not the private sector filling that? It's got to find out. Got to find out what's going on. So, and talk about the regulations that we have and the process that people have to go through to get things done. There's a lot of good things, but a lot of things add and layer on cost after cost after cost in order to get anything done.
Can I give you about like a 30-second warning, John? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Do you have any like closing thoughts, or
What's that again?
is there anything else you wanted to be able to get in there?
Oh, no. I just if you want to get at this stuff, you got to just look at it, try to find out what the problem is, and attack it one thing at a time. There's a lot of good ideas, but if you don't capitalize on them, and if you don't operate on them, and make decisions and do things to change these things that are in the way, then all the ideas that we have are fine ideas, but they won't be functional.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who hasn't made a comment yet, just because we're so over time, that would like to either throw out an idea or support for something they've heard? No?
Can I just tell a really quick little story? My very first house in West Hartford, Vermont, I saw from a train window in 1982. I tracked down the owner. I phoned him, and he said, "Oh no, I don't want to sell that." And I said, "Okay." He said, "Well, how much you give me for it?" And I said, "How about $2,500? I was 25. It was 1982. And he said, "Oh, it ain't worth that." And sold it to me for $2,000. So I have a whole lot of history in this town, and I'm thinking that we're going to do what you suggested, John, and we're going to make it better.
On the agenda, are we item 2 or 3? Phase.
We're moving into phase 3 now. So on our agenda, how many minutes? I think we had to make 10 minutes. Oh, sorry.
20 minutes to
We
round
have 20
3?
minutes. Okay, so 20 minutes, and in this last round, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of extrapolate from the first 2 rounds. So these 2 post-its, I hope everybody can see them okay. Feel free to come up and look if you need to. On to some like decisions and yeah, hopefully things that we're going to move forward with. So if we want, I can start with some low-hanging fruit. Oh, let me set my timer here. Everyone is doing an amazing job, by the way, of like keeping on schedule. We're a little over schedule, but not as much as we could be because there's so much to miss.
Well, quick win, make everything free.
Thank you.
That would be great. But.
So as we were going through, somebody noted a quick thing, and I put a marker by it, and then I put a marker by one that I thought was quick. Tim, did you have one that you?
I said that I see a value into stitching, like, I tend to come from the business sector, so I always think about mergers and acquisitions, but it's just really striking to me that all the committees that spoke tonight, there is definitely common threads that we should be able to stitch together, right? And the reality is we have limited capacity, so I just see an opportunity to perhaps define these stitch points so that I'm not suggesting these committees merge, but I'm just saying there are very key things that they all touched on, and yet the capacity of the committees is limited on what they can do year to year. So I'm intrigued by that idea before we go into specific tasking or whatever, that we look at these common themes and what are we seeing for these sort of broad concepts that they all touched on.
Yeah, and maybe actually this would be a good time to kind of like give it to the committees to share out, like having sat through this experience and knowing your own expertise and capacity, maybe what either themes stuck out to you, and or if you know of an item you want to take on, I can put it up there.
I just kind of going back, like this topic on housing and why it's so hard to build in the Upper Valley. We've hashed this. It has been presented to the town through subcommittees, committees, select board meetings. So there's a long history of conversation about old, occasionally historic housing infrastructure that is expensive to weatherize and improve. A lack of quote-unquote developable greenfield land in our town that has access to water, sewer, and a lot of those things just keep driving costs up. But what's been acknowledged is that, and this has been kind of an intention in all these meetings that I've been a part of, is all right, if we want to increase, I'm going to say the housing density, the density of housing in the town of Hartford. You know, a lot of people want to say, let's go straight to White River Junction and point at the Hotel Coolidge, and hey, that's 3 floors, it should be 6, right? Okay, so that's one way. And then the other way that's strategic and incremental is kind of going into the existing housing stock we have and finding ways to incentivize ADUs or the expansion of single-family homes into multifamily properties. And why aren't individual homeowners, why aren't they just jumping at the opportunity to add an ADU or a multifamily addition? And there's a lot of anxiety about going through this whole like permitting process. Is there enough water capacity at the line? That's something the town can answer. What's going to happen to their property taxes if they add an ADU or expand, right? There's a lot of anxiety. And so a lot of conversations that I've been a part of keep coming down to, okay, the town itself needs to get more proactive on supporting those individual property owners and adding that infrastructure. And if that, and as a carrot, right, is there a policy, and I'm getting into the Housing Commission's jurisdiction here, but is there a policy that can be worked on by individual commissions, approved by the select board, that grant town staff the authority to negotiate specific tax stabilization agreements with individual landowners with the terms and duration and amount subject to a checklist that is approved by the select board, right? And our former town manager, John Haverstock, verbally acknowledge that he thinks the town has the authority in the charter right now to have such a policy. But it is kind of an interdisciplinary one where every commission and everyone have to get together, create this policy, and then it'd be up to town staff to implement, work with individual homeowners on project-specific initiatives, get a little proactive, get in the weeds. And then ultimately every year during the town meeting cycle, there would have to be an approval for the list of proposed properties to be included in this tax plan. And I think, yeah.
But all that work and all that premise, everything you just said, is based on a theory, which I think may be flawed. And that is, we think that if we build more, prices will come down.
Well,
we've been talking about that for 20, 30 years, that if we build more and create more, prices will come down. And
Tim,
I don't believe that's necessarily true.
the tax stabilization policy would have caps and terms for rent control.
I understand, but
So they're kind of separate. Yeah, I want to make sure I understand that too.
We just talked about this a lot, that if we create more, good things will happen. And I'm not convinced that's true.
I'm not fighting that. I'm saying that if we are encouraging further development and the town is taking a formal role in this, because it may be as part of this the town acquires the ADU, rendering it property tax exempt, and then has an agreement with that individual homeowner for, all right, you shall pay $200 a year in lieu of whatever you would be assessed otherwise, and in return you lease the property out at affordable rates, and that is the carriage. Or the town get more proactive with real estate acquisition and put in the deed that it shall be used for housing at such rates, and that gets complicated. But John, I know I just got in your purview a little bit.
And I think that we could then maybe put tax stabilization as a long-term, maybe right now not actionable. Or are you kind of advocating that we've already had it here for a while and that we need to start
As a quick win, I'd suggest the town go ahead and create the Economic Development Committee that's referenced in the Economic Development Town Plan as something that we should do. And I'd propose that go into their purview with town staff to devise exactly how to do that.
So could I just add some things into there, because I think there's components to that, not so much for the latter one, but for the tax stabilization, there are some things. First of all, the town already has a tax stabilization thing, but it only can apply to commercial basis. So and the town does have the ability to do that. But I think that there's components to that have to be broken down, because some of them are long-term, some of them are short-term. And so there's not the authority right now for the town to do certain things. Tax stabilization really hits a portion of it, smaller portion of it, because it's town taxes versus state taxes. So there's a lot of pieces that have to be looked at. I think it's a longer-term thing. And there's also state authority to actually have the residential component, which there's a little piece of that in there that I don't think it got passed at the state level this time. I know there's been discussion about it, but there's things that need to be looked into for that. So I would it's kind of straddling the lines there maybe when you put it in your box.
Well, what do you think about, or what do anyone think about Jesse's proposal that we creating the Economic Development Committee? Did I get it right?
Commission, yeah.
Commission as something that the town could do now, which could then set in motion those kinds of policy discussions.
Right, and then I think you need to my suggestion is to look at what you're talking about. Maybe that really is within the purview of the housing committee as opposed to economic development, but that doesn't mean economic development isn't its own thing as well. So what goes into what bucket? Just something to think about, sort it through, figure it out.
Does anybody have an objection to me adding creation of Economic Development Committee on this? And then follow-up question is, would we have anybody who could be a point person to working with the board, or maybe it could be someone who's on the board, who would want to follow through on it? Because I do think if we can't find a follow-through person, we shouldn't put it up here. We should keep it somewhere. We don't want to forget about these ideas, but capacity-wise.
I just don't.
I was gonna say, if we don't have a person, can we assign
kind of appoint committee, because the committee may decide at this meeting.
Yeah, and I should say too, person or and then the committee can delegate amongst themselves.
If we're talking about cross-committee collaboration, I wonder if this is something like, because I think that this idea is emerging from an already existing plan within the economic development chapter, and before we get into, I think, collaborating on emergent ideas from this list, well, valuable as they are, I don't want to get us into a situation where as committees, we're coming together and being like, okay, well, they want us to put a resource page up on the website, so I guess we better do that. Like, let's do stuff that we already know has been established, and if this is something that has been established in the economic development chapter, and it has cross-committee, salience, like, let's do it. Or maybe it's just, again, as a topic within, and because Lexi being the staff liaison for the housing committee and also the economic development person could potentially guide the housing committee through this kind of collaboration. So that's my thought on it. I would like to avoid maybe the establishment of a new committee, and I would like to, if we're working across committees, I would like to figure out how to work as multiple committees on something that has been existing within the town planning process already as well.
How can I word that? Because so your thoughts are not to actually create an economic development committee, but to have several committees, maybe housing being the kind of center of it, work through what that committee was kind of theoretically charged with doing in the
and if anybody's interested, maybe come to our housing committee meeting tomorrow and we can talk about it in other business.
I think John explained it's greater collaboration between committees.
Specifically around economic.
The intersection of housing and economic development and the town's ability to, I think, take a more proactive role in long-term planning as it relates to this issue of affordability.
Oh, I got all that.
You are good. It's almost like a subcommittee where people are going to be coming from different committees.
Do you have enough ink for that?
On economic.
So it's in the quick win column because
it's tomorrow during other business.
Yes. Yeah, wait, I'm sorry.
Check it off tomorrow.
Yeah, I guess that's a good.
What is the outcome of a quick win? What does that look like?
Well, I think it's what we've been discussing, wanting to have cross-committee collaboration here, and this is something that exists within existing town planning that we can start to address as a committee together. Again, as opposed to pulling something here that we have not really fully fleshed out. We can do that. We can look at these things for sure, but I'm just kind of coming from the standpoint of, and I think jumping on Jesse's point.
I think the distinction, Eric, is that when we were going to have it be create the economic development committee, that felt like a quick win, like create the committee. So yeah, now that we've kind of changed that a little bit, I do think we should move it to long-term plans, because there's not like an outcome that you expect by November 28th. Are you okay with that, or do you really feel like it does belong?
Is it Economic Development Commission? Is it revitalization of the Hartford Housing Authority? One requires an update to the charter, the other one does not. I think there's a lack of participation in the revolving loan fund. Kim stepped out, but she's involved with that. Laura, you too. And if there were an engine that could internally pull from
That's
that.
actually what's going on
right
now. We are working with the revolving loan fund committee. Lexi is working with them. They are step in partnership with the idea of using the fund to help stimulate economic development through housing development. And we've even had conversations very specifically about businesses wanting to build housing for their employees, or just in general to get more affordable employee housing, and using the funds for that. We've got 2 revolving loan funds. And so that's part of the kickoff programs, and also understanding more about and that's what came up a lot in economic development plan. Without the housing, it really stymies your economic development. And I think that's the piece you're trying to emphasize, the interconnectedness between the 2 components.
Yeah, and right, what's the right place for that? But it sounds like this is happening already at the staff level and as kind of guided by the housing committee. So maybe I'll just.
Well, but
Which I think
I think
it's
your
also-
idea, I think your concept of looking at how an economic development committee in its own right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the kind of thing to me that works more with something like a PPP, you know, or a larger scale mixed-use development, or just general businesses. I think there's still value in that.
Yeah, and because you know, when we were going through the whole
Right.
downtown parking thing, like I was a volunteer, kind of participating, but was I the right representative from a committee to be involved? I think like the whole PPP thing probably needs its own home. Maybe, I don't know.
You know, but so I don't want to. You feel like you're. That's a solid recommendation.
It just might not be a quick win, but it's something that should be up there.
Yeah.
I kind of called it out as a recommendation that it just kind of be made because it's been
Yeah.
recommended before, and whether, I guess this is where housing, energy, planning even kind of overlap.
So does it feel comfortable if I say cross-committee collaboration? This is a quick win, so it'll happen in the short term. Cross-committee collaboration on economic development, deciding what body should oversee this.
Cool.
Is that, and and then having a check-in about where you imagine that goes, what committees are involved, if it's a separate committee, maybe like by the, I don't know, Eric, do you have any, or Ida, Mike, have any recommendations, Kim, to when people you'd like to hear back on some of these things?
You know where I think we get stuck here? I think we're not really, sometimes you have to step back where you define the work. And I feel like earlier the woman, I'm sorry, in the corner, I forgot your name, but she spoke very eloquently about the concept of like, what does a healthy, dynamic, vibrant community look like? You know, I know we talk about affordability, and that's kind of that, right, or whatever. And the thing that I've wrestled with in my mind is this concept of scale. I spent a good chunk of my life in Hartford, Vermont, and when I go back to visit it, my stepmom's still there, I'm like, what works in Hartford? Why is Hartford such a dynamic, interesting place? And touching a little bit on what John said earlier, like, there are a lot of individuals who do incredible work in that community, supporting the elderly, running meals to people, you know, doing things on a scale that works. And I do think that, you know, I just have this idea that, you know, looking at all the work that people are trying to do, I think you sometimes have to go back and redefine, you know, sometimes things get stale, right? You create these committees, they're around forever, you know, they're trying to do good work, but we're kind of not refreshing it in the sense of like the definition of what we're trying to achieve. And it could be a simple mission statement or something. And then really thinking about how the work is lying underneath that. And I think that we're just missing that a little bit. I just have to be honest, because everybody's got good ideas and you're in your committee and you're trying to do good work. But I think you have to step back and say, what does a healthy, vibrant, affordable, whatever we want to use for adjectives, committee look, or our community look like? And then how do you kind of get there? And sometimes I think it requires literally an ending of a committee, a redefining of a committee, and I know we've been doing that work to try and get these committees engaged and focused on the work. But I think we have to define the work a little bit. I think we have to step back and say, what do we want Hartford to look like? Do we want Hartford to look more like Hartland? Do we want to make it look like Winooski or Colchester or Burlington? Like, we have to think about, you know, as a community, because I think that's one of the things that Hartford's always wrestled with. Is like, oh, we're just we have these villages, and we're kind of city-esque right now. And I think we have to kind of like think about that. And do we want to continue down that path, or do we have an opportunity to redefine ourselves?
I want to just add something here that's really important, because I think don't differentiate that Heartland does these things, but Hartford doesn't. In particular, we have the Bugby Senior Center that is providing these kinds of services and direct. So I'm just, but
it's more like just thinking about how a community remains healthy and vibrant, how people get the work done, who does the work. These are conversations that are worth reflecting upon.
And I think my point is that we are doing some of these things, and to the point of I think that Jesse, you're trying to reference back to the economic development chapter, is where do we find how these things, these strengths that are existing within our community, that we can elevate within this broader conversation. And I think that we do have those things. And so why the quick win of just the cross-committee collaboration on those existing terms will be a quick win, because we do have those kinds of long-standing successes that we can pull on.
I'm going to Eric and then
I appreciate what you just said, Tim. And we postponed our strategic visioning, right? So, and that's where that conversation needs to happen. Tonight, I think we want to walk out of this room with some things that we can work on. So we've got to play it where it lies, right? We've got, right now, we have to come up with the ideas that we think are likely to fit into that broader vision. We don't have the time to sort of step back and go, okay, let's do visioning now. There are things that are going to naturally fit into that overall vision. So I think that's where we are, is let's pick a handful of things that we can work on, and not lose sight of that we need to step back and do some visioning and maybe take a more holistic and, who knows, more radical look at things. Right now, that's on the schedule for the select board for January, I think. So let's revisit that.
Okay, we're going to go Beth, and then remind me your name again?
Bruce.
Bruce, okay, after Beth.
Yeah, I just want to say I get that completely, and I was going to support, though, that I think Tim does have a point, that it's like I'm sitting here trying to think through the low-hanging fruit, and I do feel this need, at least as a citizen, to have, like, first of all, to mull over all of these ideas and to think about them and to watch the video and to just, like, I feel like we're kind of, as a facilitator, hat on, I feel like you guys have done an amazing job tonight, and it's like almost like too much to do this part now. I won't argue if you do it. I just want to say I'm really tired, and my brain is tired, and it's full of all these ideas, and I just don't know, I just feel like you need a part two, but that's just my opinion.
That's a helpful, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things going on at the same time, and each needs to be isolated.
Yeah, and I mean, I will say, part of the board's, I guess you could say, like, urgency to get this kind of somewhat hashed out, or at least, pretty well thought out, is that we wanted any committees who had budgetary items related to these proposals to be able to get them to us ahead of our budget process, which starts in October. So that was kind of like the time crunch. That being said, and like other board members, please chime in if you feel differently. Nothing that's come up here tonight has felt like it's going to result in a big budgetary line item request from the committee.
Well, if we wanted to pursue the fuel buying that's backstopped by the town, we probably ought to be thinking about that, right?
Yeah, I didn't sense a ton of interest in that from committees, but like, let me know if I just missed that. It's not.
Yeah, this is normal. Having my department staffing 9 committees, we have a good hand. We're almost 10.
Yeah.
10 now. That's
Coming
true.
up.
I forgot we just started doing. So this is the time when we are actively thinking about. The committees and their meetings are actively talking already about what is it that you want on the docket for next year. What is it going to cost? We could just take the housing committee as an example. It's something they're going to be talking about this week and then next week, so that come the time when it needs to get put into the budget, you've got a grasp on it anyway. But there's a lot of committees that are working on something that may not be a big ticket item thing, but it may be more on what you're talking about, is refocusing it on these, on the interconnectedness. That to me is like the opportunity for this coming budget cycle, is really looking at the things that everybody's targeting, have been doing, where's the intersections, where this year becomes the place of discovering them, finding out how you do that. When do you really need to make the budget decisions? October. So there is a little bit of time built into there, that those thoughtful processes could be happening between now and maybe when they have to hand in their stuff to, well, it's giving my
the person takes over, but normally would have to hand it in to me when I'm putting together the budget. So I think there was a little bit of time to really build on what's been done here tonight in really discovering the interconnectedness between the work programs that they're already working on. And if there's little pieces that say, okay, we want to do this, that's going to require some money. There may be an opportunity in the next couple weeks for the committees to get together on their own, discover the interconnectedness. Maybe you guys schedule another meeting if it's needed. I don't know, committee chairs talk about what you think.
Yeah.
And let's put that as the focus for the committees, you know, as they're working through their budgets like they did any time this year, you know, this time of the year. I don't, you, John, tell me what you think.
I think Lexi had a thought.
I was just going to say, you also have the opportunity to put everything we talked about tonight onto the survey as ideas, thoughts, or people that took the survey previously, open it back up to them, give this recording link, give this list. It just gives a chance for everyone to think about this some more and get outside opinions from the community as well that aren't here tonight.
Right.
Yeah,
That's a good
I like
point.
that idea.
Yeah. People couldn't come tonight.
Yeah, do any other committee chairs want to, I mean, what do you all prefer? Do you feel like staying here another 15 minutes and trying to like hash out these items is productive or helpful, or does that feel daunting and you'd rather kind of go back to your groups and like I can send all of this as an email? But I think just the board's biggest thing is like we don't want to lose it here, right? Like we understand also committees are like busy and sometimes short or under, I don't want to say staff.
We talk about this every time.
I'm going to kick it to you right after I let them kind of give their feedback on that.
We were saying we talk about this every time we see each other, but now we have the select board's endorsement.
Kyle?
You're heavily reading into that.
Kyle, do you have any thoughts? Like, what's your preference as far as trying to hash out?
I think you got on the point that like these aren't big ticket items. I think the question is more about bandwidth and capacity at the committee level, and committees working together. It's additional meetings and time, which is often doable when you have a full committee, because you can have divvy things up between people. A big issue right now is getting people on committees, and that's been chronic long term since I've joined the committee, and that can really slow things down and put the brakes on. And so I'm glad that we're not just making a new committee, because it means we need 5 or 6 or 7 volunteers, and then 3 drop out, and you're like, can we get a quorum of 4? We all show up. But I like the idea of a quick win, and I think, affordability's been kind of like boiling the code over a long period of time. People have been just kind of going along and then not realizing, oh, the water's not boiling. And then I feel like it's gotten very acute. So people are much more aware of it now than maybe they were 10 years ago. The issues with costs, just for basic goods and groceries and things like that, it all adds up. And what is something that can happen in a short period of time that can maybe give people a sense of agency, that they can maybe take actions to better their situation, whether it's finding a resource for weatherization, or, like I spend $100 in groceries per week, but I can cut that in half because now I know about this thing over here. So I do think that's, like, in the very, very short term, that's a lot easier to do. Where you have all these longer term issues like housing, taxes, and things like that. How can you reduce that over time? That's not going to change tomorrow, but what can change is how the resources that people have and their ability to take some agency and act on that, but it's knowing where to look for those resources. So, yeah, I don't know where that's going, but
Yeah, I appreciate those thoughts, and Tim, I didn't forget about you because you're next on the docket here. And I do want to say that, like, yeah, the thing that I was most hopeful would just land in quick actions with any committee is the resource list. And thank you, Sarah. And I know that that might feel like kind of, I don't know, like redundant or like, oh, that's not like why I joined X or Y, Z committee. But like working in the nonprofit space, I can just say that like all of the nonprofits in the Upper Valley are stretched so thin that like I go to housing conferences or rural health conferences and we're like, can we just do some resource mapping of like what even already exists? And we're all like, oh my gosh, yeah, I'm ED over here. I would love to do that. Like, can you guys do that? I'm like, we don't have time to do that. So, and there may be I think some semblance of it does exist. I bet the Haven would be a good group to tap to see like what they've consolidated. But I do think that if anyone had the will, and I wish I could take on another pet project, but I cannot, we could add resource mapping, which could be a 1-pager or 2-pager that would live on the town website, 2 quick wins.
Sign me up.
You want to join a committee? You want to at least come to Resilient Hartford Committee?
Sure. We can bring it up at the next Resilient Hartford meeting and discuss it.
Okay, I'm going to throw it up there, and then I'm going to kick it to Tim. And I'm sorry, Tim, that you wait so long.
No, I just wanted to, Lori.
And then I guess that we'll be wrapping up.
I was really struck by the fact that you guys said, 10 or 11 committees, you're engaged with, which is amazing. But I'm also thinking, like, to do the work that we're trying to do, that is to say, take the community and these committees and the governing body and the staff and Hartford and everything, and weave it all together into some productive fashion. Why, if we could deliver the same work with half the groups, why would we do that? And I'm not trying to be like a hardcore lobbyist advocate for mergers and acquisitions, but I'm just saying, like, it just strikes me that, we've mentioned this so many times about how committees are hard to fill, they're stressed, they're trying to do this, trying to do that. Why we're not doing a little bit of a distilling down and rethinking about what committees do, and maybe, these 3 groups here tonight look like they line up pretty nice in terms of like, and I'm not saying all the work is the same, and I'm not saying all the expertise is the same, but I'm just saying, like, if we could simplify how we do the work and do more work, that would be a win for me.
So to me, this is the intersecting collaboration that's kind of being birthed out of this conversation is a place to discover that. So as the committees start coming together in collaboration, the intersects may, over time, define that more specifically. So maybe I go back to the question, is the collaboration on a few of these items, like weatherization? I think I looked at my list here, everybody listed weatherization. That's a focus. There was a suggestion about a weatherization fair, and that's one of the things that we know that people, I have, the window dressers in my house, I love it. It's great. And it not only gave us the energy, piece of it for 1840s house, with very good insulation, by the way, but still the windy windows. It created a social network. My husband, who is not, we can't even fit him in anymore in my house, but he's still going to participate in the window dressers. So to me, that's building community. That's another thing that we talk about, building community. So let's take something like that, put it in as a thing that it starts with the collaboration of committees, but we know it's going to start building communities that go beyond just that task. Maybe that's where we just start with something simple.
Yeah, I'm going to go one more comment back to you, and then we'll close out.
Okay, so I'm on the planning commission, and I could easily spend several $100,000 to enhance the work we do on the planning commission. Easily, drop in the bucket. I agree with Tim. As long as the house maintains some physical value, rent prices are sticky. They don't go down. Right now, in the town of Hartford, give or take, we have 100 acres for sale. It can be used for housing. The question is, according to the town's special project guide, those 100 acres may not be developed. You know, why aren't they developable? And is there a way, some small way we could make them developable? Or are we just gonna have to leave them as, and that's nothing wrong with this, leave them as wilderness. But if we want to leave them as wilderness for the town, maybe the town should buy the 100 acres. These are long-term things. Easily for me, if I win the lottery, which I don't win this, it's about $1 million, I'm gonna spend that money getting the resources the planning commission needs to do the work they want.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Now you're committed if you win.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think we're, Ida, do you want to close us out?
Sure. Thanks, everyone. This was fruitful. I think we laid the groundwork for a lot of, we knew this was going to be a starting point, and it certainly was. We generated a ton of ideas, a few actionable items that we can take next steps on, and I hope if you're not already involved with one of these committees and commissions, I hope you connect with someone or look on our website in terms of how to join, because I think those are the spaces in which these conversations can be carried forward, and we can really start to continue to take small steps towards some of these big picture ideas. So with that, I'm going to see what Eric wants to say.
Thank you. And the board will debrief on this on the 18th at our select board meeting. So that's another opportunity to, after the thoughts have settled and maybe there's some digestion for people to provide input, whether it's through public comment. That meeting, board meetings are hybrid, so you don't have to make your trip down to town hall if you just want to chime in. We can take that comment during that agenda item, and then thanks.
Yeah, exactly. So we meet. Our regular meetings are every other Tuesday in the room across, so they're always open to the public. People can come, join in. The agendas are posted online. This coming Tuesday will be debriefing this discussion as a board. Okay, so with that, I'm going to see if there's a motion to adjourn the meeting. Motion made by Eric. Is there a second? Second by Tim. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstained? Okay, so we're adjourn the meeting. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you.